Hey everybody, this is 365 Days of Movies. This is where I rate my top 365 movies. One movie a day for a year. So, with that, let's get into this movie. Number 283, Star Trek 7.18. Released in 2009. Directed by J.J. Abrams, starring John Cho, Ben Cross, Bruce Greenwood, Simon Pegg, Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Winona Ryder, Zoe Saldana, Karl Urban, Anton Yelchin, Eric Bana, and Leonard Nimoy. Aboard the USS Enterprise, the most sophisticated starship ever built, a novice crew embarks on its maiden voyage. Their path takes them on a collision course with Nero, a Romulan commander whose mission of vengeance threatens all mankind. If humanity would survive, a rebellious young officer named James T. Kirk and a coolly logical Vulcan named Spock must move beyond their rivalry to find a way to defeat Nero before it's too late. The J.J. Abrams universe, starting with this movie, is enjoyable to watch. They're good popcorn flicks, but my Star Trek is a slower version of Star Trek. They move through the story, and they're not running through it, and it's not wild action all over the place for the sake of action. Action is not the point of Star Trek for me, and I'm not saying that just because the older Star Trek is better because it's older. I'm saying that because the style of it is what I'm looking for. And in fact, when starting this video and reading the synopsis that the studio put out, the most sophisticated starship ever built, I don't think that's what the Enterprise was in the original Star Trek, and even after the refit, it wasn't necessarily the best ship in the fleet, or the most sophisticated. It was one of the most, or one of the best. The crew themselves felt it was the best, and Scotty definitely felt it was the best, and took a lot of flack from other people who clearly, objectively, had better ships, but the Enterprise was his. It's like the guy with the classic car that he loves. That's basically Scotty, but it doesn't mean the Enterprise was the best ship in the fleet ever. And that's not the point. The point isn't to be the coolest ship and fight the coolest enemies and have the greatest battles and do these zero-G orbital fight scenes while you're trying to disable a machine that's going to destroy a planet. That isn't Star Trek. It can happen in Star Trek, sure, but the point of Star Trek is discovery, going to new places, discovering new sciences, new people, new civilizations, all the things that are mentioned in these opening sequences for the Star Trek TV shows. And I don't mind new Star Trek as long as they follow the style of the old one, where the story moved at a pace that was not necessarily leisurely, but certainly not as fast-paced as, today's action movies. So if studios are planning to make Star Trek movies, they shouldn't give them $250 million budget. There's no reason that a Star Trek movie needs to cost that much. It can probably do it for under $50 million, because it needs some special effects, but it doesn't need a lot of special effects, because the story itself takes place within the ship or on a planet or whatever, but it's not these wild battles. Maybe near the end there's a cool battle, but for me, I like to use one of the episodes of Next Generation as an example, and there's countless episodes of Star Trek that are like this, where it's basically a Romulan ship and the Enterprise under Picard are on the edge of the neutral zone, the Romulans having not been around for decades, and this is the first meeting that humans and Romulans have had in a long time, and it's more of a Cold War feel to it, and not a single shot is fired, but there's a lot of tension because the two species have never gotten along, and there's no suggestion that they're going to surmount their differences at this point. And in fact, it may just get worse from here. That seems to be the suggestion. And these two ships are just facing off, and then they go their separate way, and the actual conflict of the story is resolved. And there's a lot of that in Star Trek. And yes, there's starship battles, but that is sort of a, it's an inevitability that there's going to be some starship battles. And of course, Deep Space Nine is full of starship battles at the end of its the final season. In the earlier seasons, less starship battles, lots more thought put into how cultures clash and how individuals have different ideals and how to take your principles and act on those principles and not undermine your own principles and discover new things. And I don't see that in any of the new Star Trek since this movie came out. The shows themselves are just terrible. The movies are enjoyable, especially the third movie, but they're not as good as Star Trek could be. And that's why I say the budget can be much smaller, because you don't have to become a Star Wars or an MCU or anything like that. It can just be Space Navy. And Space Navy with Discovery as the principal as opposed to battle. And if there is tensions, then Cold War tensions are best. And most of Star Trek has done that. You're looking at, even the original crew with the Klingons, and they had a very Cold War tension because the Klingons were standing in for the Soviets. And then in the Next Generation, the Romulans became a stand-in for tensions between East and West. And then, in Deep Space Nine, it was the Dominion, and that, I think, is how things can be done. And I don't mind, you could do an entire series, and then maybe in the third or fourth movie, it becomes huge, crazy battles, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that at all. So if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. Hey, everybody. This has been 365 Days of Movies. We're going to keep plowing ahead. So let me know what you think of this movie, and if you want to discuss it further, comment below. If I get a lot of interest, I may very well make a full review of the movie, maybe even a video essay. So let me know what you think, and let's get to the next one.